office in Bangkok. I worked with my teams across the 3 implementing countries of this coalition building for resilience in Vanuatu, in Indonesia, as well as in Myanmar, where I'm currently speaking from. We have just finished the city level inception as well as introduction of the project to various stakeholders and the MRCS. Now, in Vanuatu, we are working in one city called Luganville. In Indonesia, we are working up in 2 cities of Semarang and Ternate, where my colleague Jaya will be speaking about her experiences, anecdotes, challenges, and learnings from it. And Myanmar, where we have just started the project in the city of Monomain. And it's a diverse range of cities in every aspect. I mean, in terms of population, in terms of culture, in terms of the politics, in terms of the administration. And we are learning that in each city, given its diversity and uniqueness, we need to design our interventions and strategies accordingly. One size doesn't fit all. Coming on to the project has been quite new for all of us when we got into it. There were a number of components and elements where we really was trying to figure out how we go about it in terms of the city risk assessment, the coalition building part. And we spent a lot of time at the beginning having conversations with movement partners, with the IFRC, also non-movement partners like ICLEI, UN Habitat, to try to see where we could bring value, where are the gaps, and what we really need to focus on. And I think that those conversations right at the beginning of the project helped us to really design and develop the tools and the processes which we are doing in this project. Now, central to this entire project is the multi-stakeholder platforms. That one partner cannot possibly do everything. We really need to be working together in terms of analyzing, assessing, and identifying what are your possible interventions, as well as working towards implementing those interventions. So we really kept the multi-stakeholder platform, the coalitions, at the center of this process. And Jaya will be talking about her experiences of this coalition from Indonesia, from both the cities. Now, based on that, we also worked on the citywide risk assessment, which was a new tool, trying to see and understand how we could zoom out of the natural community-based assessment which we do and try to understand and assess cities at a city scale, as well as keeping our focus on communities. Now, we've been able to develop a tool which I'll talk about on the next slide. So based upon that assessment, we've also been able to link it up with the national societies, local level of the VCA toolkit which they have, and also align the issues, the priorities, and the solutions, because we believe that they're all interconnected. I mean, the issues and also the solutions are interconnected. So we identifying the solution, designing the solution, and also in terms of the implementation of the solution. And again, as I'll re-mention it, done through a multi-stakeholder coalition building, right? So next slide, please. One of the 2 tools which we came up with was the citywide assessment. Now, also still focusing on community resilience, because we want to also align it with the IFRC's roadmap to resilience concept and make sure that the alignment with also the national societies, local level assessment tools. Now, the citywide assessment brings in a range of stakeholders. It focuses on a systems approach. So we understand what are the various urban systems in the city. We're looking at the different risks, the various shocks and stresses. And we also see the interplay between systems and the shocks and stresses and its impact on communities. And based upon that is how we design solutions which could build resilience of the systems and also build resilience of the communities. And we're also working with different partners to see how we can come up with a process in terms of designing solutions, which we should be rolling it out or piloting in Myanmar. So that's one tool. And we've found that there are certain challenges to it in terms of Vanuatu and Semarang and Indonesia, because again, the scales of the city are so different. Where we have Semarang of 1.3 million people and Luganville in terms of around 20,000 people. So the scales are different, and we were able to grasp that understanding of the skills and adapt our strategies accordingly. The second tool has been about coalition building. Now, we took great care in understanding the context of each city to see whether there was a multi-stakeholder platform, and they could be in terms of a working group, they could be in terms of a platform, trying to see where was these coalitions, multi-stakeholder platform in those cities, and whether we were, if we started a new coalition, whether it would be a duplication. And we were able to understand and assess those existing platforms and also the memberships of it. For example, in most cases, especially in Luganville, Vanuatu, we learned that the membership of the Provincial Disaster and Climate Change Committee did not include in the local civil society organizations or the academia or the private sector or the media. Now, it was a very fixed, very strong government-led and government-represented group out there. So we were trying to look at that to see whether we could form something else or whether we could form a subgroup of it and expand that membership. And I'll talk about that in the next step. So we looked into the context, and also we designed accordingly strategies in terms of coalition building. Now, what I will talk about, I'll give a broad overview of our experiences while Jaya will focus on Indonesia. So coming back into Vanuatu, as I was saying, in terms of the Provincial Disaster and Climate Change Committee, we actually worked on a subgroup because that gave us the space to include the academia, the media, the private sector into it and discuss it on urban resilience. And we actually found that the Provincial Disaster and Climate Change Committee was comfortable with that arrangement because also this subgroup was reporting to the provincial committee. So there was linkages, and it also became part of the institutional mechanism for disaster management in that city. So everybody got comfortable with it. And also the provincial had kind of a say in guiding this subgroup. The Vanuatu Red Cross has been able to garner and mobilize support of different entities, different stakeholders, the private sector, the civil society, different INGOs. World Vision has been extremely active in this group, and they've been coming together. They've been extremely active throughout the whole process. And I think that also has been one of our learnings, is how we communicate the project to the different coalition members. How do we involve them? How do we communicate and transparency of a project? What are we actually doing? And what value they can play in the process is extremely important to get their participation and engagement throughout this whole exercise. And I think across all three cities, we have been able to find that. I mean, those are the common trends coming out. So, of course, it's always coming up front. It's always been a challenge getting the private sector, because as a Red Cross, we still are learning how to speak that business language of resilience to them. And we're going along the way. I think in January when we met, we were able to refine our strategies in terms of engagement with the private sector, especially for national society. And we have, to some degree, got success of the private sector participation into this. We have used, standard national society strengths in terms of first aid, trainings in terms of DRR awareness programs with the private sector to use that as a foundation and build upon it to get greater interest. So that has been our experience also with the private sector. I will hand it over to Jaya, who will focus on the Indonesia experiences. So over to you, Jaya.
The one who managed this project in Indonesia. So the prototyping urban and community resilience initiative, we implemented in 2 cities in Indonesia. First is in Ternate, which is part of Eastern Indonesia, and then the second is in Semarang, as the Western Indonesia. Both cities actually have very different profile, different characteristics, such as Semarang is a big city. It has more than 1.7 million population, and then has more advance on development and also better infrastructure as well as. While in Ternate is a small city, which is just has 1/3 out of Semarang area, and the population is just around 270,000 people. Second, please. Next, please. Yeah. This project actually is a very strategic project for the National Society or Indonesian Red Cross. This is a new way, a new process for the National Society to work together with others to see the resilience issues from different expertise, sharing a common vision, and then resolve the problem together. Through this project, actually, the National Society or the Indonesian Red Cross can share the resources together within the coalition, sharing expertise from various skills of the coalition members, and then also include the budget as well. In this project also, the coalition will have opportunity to approach to link up the resilience issue between in the city level and then in the neighborhood level. What and how the resilience issue in the neighborhood level could support the resilience issue in the city level, for example. And then through this project also actually, we have a toolkit based on the learning by doing as Colin explained priorly. Next, please. Yeah, this is the project implementation cycle. In the beginning, actually, the Indonesian Red Cross involved the multi-stakeholder related and then to be together resolve the resilience issues. Initially, actually, they have initial agreement between the Indonesian Red Cross and then the local multi-stakeholder, which is the coalition actually is established naturally, and then based on the existing forum, for example, in Semarang, the National Red Cross in Semarang actually revitalize the existing coalition such as the City Resilience Semarang and then also Disaster Risk Reduction Forum and then Internate as well. Commonly, Disaster Risk Reduction Forum members are only the government staff, but then through this project, the Indonesian Red Cross by the coalition approach, they encourage the multi-stakeholder related to have close collaboration on resolving the resilience issues. Actually, currently the coalition members include the government, non-government organization, private sector, university, and then some community-based organization. After establishing the coalition, Indonesian Red Cross continue to have citywide assessment, which is the assessment actually implemented by the National Society, the Indonesian Red Cross or PMI, and then also the coalition member involved in the whole activities. Through this step, actually, the coalition apply the toolkit that Colin explained before. They identify what kind of the resilience issues in the city level, what the priority is, how the history of the risk, and then the possibility opportunity in the future. Mostly from this assessment actually, the coalition will identify what kind of system impacted, what system that high risk impacted, who is impacted, and then who will have capacity and authorities to solve this problem in the future. Based on this assessment, the next step is the coalition member and Indonesian Red Cross will set up and agree what action to be implemented for the priority risk solution. Through the citywide also, the coalition will decide whether the assessment should be continued in the neighborhood level or not. After that, the next step is the coalition will develop the action plan based on the citywide assessment and then the design solution. The action plan actually includes some activities that will be implemented by Indonesian Red Cross and then also by the coalition, which is the activity where the coalition involved is in line with the coalition expertise. Next, please. Yeah. So the Indonesian Red Cross in Semarang, for example, they had, as mentioned before, they had initial agreement with the local multi-stakeholder when they conducted the project launching or beginning socialization to the local stakeholders. In this agreement, actually, is implemented or released in March and then also June in Ternate. Actually, beside the initial agreement, the Semarang and Ternate also they had agreement with formal agreement with the local government as the authority of the city, and then the agreement is the legal basic of the Indonesian Red Cross to encourage local stakeholders to work together. And then also based on the agreement, the mayor of the city released the decree letter as the coalition membership actually. And then also through the decree letter, the mayor of the city also placed the structure and then the coalition job description based on the input from the coalition member. In Semarang, actually, the Indonesian Red Cross, they had also socialized the Indonesia government regulation regarding the Red Cross regulation. And then currently, Mayor of Semarang City decided that the Indonesian Red Cross in Semarang become the leader of organization who focus on resilience issue, particularly on disaster issue, through the decree letter, which is valid until the end of 2019. This is also a part of strategy how the Indonesian Red Cross to build the coalition is not based on this project duration, but also continue after the project finished. So, next, please. As mentioned priorly, that the coalition members are engaging in the project activities to strengthen the cohesion within the coalition and then provide the opportunity to contribute in the process. This is part of the strategy. Yes, thank you, Aida. strategy to keep together in the coalition. Citywide assessment, vulnerable capacity assessment campaigning are the activities where the coalition member involved. Actually. So as we see, the one of the private sector Internate is involved in the field assessment, citywide assessment, and workshop, and then also in the field. Aside from the coalition in the city level, Indonesian Red Cross actually also are focused on the community level organization. Next, please. Yeah. So, yeah. So, neighborhood level, actually there are some community-based organization in neighborhood in Indonesia. This is a very crucial organization um, who could have opportunity to involve in the local government planning in neighborhood level, which is this is government planning start actually as the basic of the five government planning in the district level. So it is actually the Indonesian Red Cross support the community-based organization, provide the capacity on relation of disaster issues, resilience issues. So the community-based organization, they can have knowledge and then they could raise their voice regarding the design solution support from the local government. Yeah, Indonesian Red Cross also provide capacity building for them. And then private sector engagement is also one of the component focus in this project. Indonesia government actually has a mandatory that private sector is one of the main institution has to be involved in the disaster issues. And then based on this, the private sector engagement is very crucial to engage in this coalition and then also in the activities as well as a part of the strategy. Actually, national Indonesian Red Cross has a strength actually on first aid, so this is also become part of the materials on private sector engagement as such as a kind of strategy how to start to build relationship between the Indonesian Red Cross and then private sector. So far, the private sector actually have engaged in same activities such as citywide assessment and campaigning. But somehow we still need more engage the private sector in preparedness issues. Is not only just preparedness preparedness issues introduction, but also more in the planning and activities. Next, please. Okay, so the Indonesian Red Cross actually, as American Red Cross partner for the project implementation, they are also as the key facilitator of the coalition. I think they have struggled to bring stakeholders together, to convince them, to influence them, the stakeholder for willing to sitting and working together as the coalition. I think this is also a part of the high challenge in this project. Yeah. Okay. Next, please. Yeah. So far, actually, there are some achievements for this project that two coalition actually has been established and also have legality from the mayor of the city for both city, but somehow actually to strengthen of the coalition is still ongoing process. Yeah. And then also, actually, through the declarer of the government, we encourage the local government that the declarer is not only based on the this project period, but also beyond or after of the project period, to make sure the sustainable of the coalition in the future. Um, and then also in this project, actually, we have conduct this city reassessment process in the cities, and then by using the new toolkits. Right, as mentioned before, also private sector engagement has joined in this coalition, and then also engage in some activities. Co-funding, I think this is also a part of uh, achievement in this project, that actually some activity in the field, the local government, and then some organization such as universities also support the implementation by support the cost together. And then also actually capacity building, actually through this project, capacity building also provided for the coalition member, and then also campaigning as well as, which is actually the private sector actually aside involved as they participate of the training, they are also involved as the facilitator on campaigning, include the other coalition members such as the local government staff. Through this project also, the Indonesian Red Cross actually they develop their agreement with local organizations, such as there's agreement with the local government radio for supporting the campaign on resilience issues without any cost. I think this is actually have an initial agreement that they can continue this even after the project period. Next, please. And then also the challenges. Honestly, we have some challenge in this project, which is a multi-stakeholders engagement is a biggest challenge in this project. How to fix the agenda, match the schedule is very hard to make it work. Because in terms of this coalition, multi-stakeholder engagement actually is not only bring them together, but also convince and then influencing, and then also there is a power relation there. For example, several government organizations, for example, and then also a private sector, they are uh, less attending the meeting, less participate on the meeting, if the meeting will not be attended by the mayor of the city. And then also limited time. Private sector, as mentioned, that private sector have been engaged in this project, but it's still limited. We engage them on private sector engagement training, but it just preparedness introduction, I think. We still need to do more, to do deeper intervention, such as DRR planning and activities, for example, and then continue how to facilitate them to have continuous plan, and then of course to raise their awareness on this issue. Honestly, it's not easy to involve them. We have to try to make a trick so they are willing to involve in the training. Yeah, and then also the other challenging is changing government official. When the government stops changing, then the project team have to socialize again to the new member, introduction, socialize, and then which is take time. Yeah, project implementing through the coalition actually is a new thing, a new way relatively for the national Red Cross, particularly in the area where a project implemented. So this is also they are very struggle to work in this. But I honestly I really appreciate how they struggle, and then at least all of the strategy they try to implement hard and then work on this. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. So, and then the learning and recommendation. I think this project is a great project design, new model, and then uh, it can be promote and advocate to other cities as well as. And then also this is a movement of RCRC to connect within the community level, and then to the larger city assessment. Since this is a new way of working for the Indonesian Red Cross, the experience of it's a great experience could be captured and then shared for replication in the other cities in the countries. Yeah, actually building the coalition is a natural process and then sometimes hard to put it within a time frame. So as mentioned before that fix the agenda, match the time is very hard to find it. And then also through this project, we have understanding and existing institutional arrangement of the government for the disaster risk reduction or disaster management or even climate change and working in line. There. Yeah, we can use in the project as a purpose to work together and then build on that question for the larger resilience issue. And then also, I think through this project, we learned that not all people or stakeholder has a time to commit regularly to this. So we need to have a core. Yeah, my colleagues mentioned that core nucleus as a Red Cross is a part of this with key government and local non-government organization. Okay. Next. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ainur. So if you have any
Thank
question.
you. Oh, thank you
Okay.
so much. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Colin and Jaya. And I am now opening up for questions from the participants. Let me see if I need to unmute everyone. So I'm going to unmute you, but please feel free to. Okay, it's probably just please unmute yourself if when you have a question and would like to ask. Okay, Colin wants, okay, unmute. So, all right. Are you, Colin? You're raising your hand, I guess.
Hi, good morning, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting work going on behind the scenes. I'm asking the following question based on the work we're doing around country response planning for ISD. And I hope that everybody on the call is familiar with the upcoming movement response planning workshop that will be held in Indonesia next week. I'm wondering to what degree are these communications and planning happening alongside the response colleagues within the Federation? That's question number one. Question number two is there a distinction between a coalition and a consortium? Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Colin, the other Colin, would you like to answer?
Okay. Thanks, Colin, for that question. It's not often that I say my name loud. So it's an opportunity to say my name loud, Colin. Right. Okay. Uh, in terms of in terms of the first question, in terms of response planning, yes, I was in Indonesia last week, and I heard of these developments in terms of the response planning, etc. And of course, we also would like to see how that process and exercise would be developing. So that is basically within the movement to the limited knowledge I've had. And I guess we have yet to understand more. And I guess when things move forward, we will be able to sit with the country representative out there, other movement partners, the IFRC, to understand what's happening in the response planning. And if there's any component we could align with or work together. So we're not really sure now. So that is a work in progress, and we would be extremely interested to see how that is going along. In terms of the difference between a consortium and a coalition, of course, I'm sure there will be different points of view and definitions out there. But in terms of the coalition, is people are really coming together because of a certain purpose, of a common purpose, binding together, uh, also bringing in different technical resources, skills, experiences, and also trying to share those within us, within those other coalition members for the achieving urban resilience, in, also limited in relation to the project and beyond. Now, of course, consortiums, we would have money being transferred, we would have financial issues, we would have MOUs, etc. So I think there are a lot of legalities up there. But I think in terms of the coalition, it's more of an understanding of a terms of reference of a group which is coming together for a purpose and working together. So that's the working knowledge we have got. I have in terms of the difference, and I'm always open to strengthening that argument.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Just in the spirit of kind of information sharing, it's always fascinating to learn what other colleagues are working on. I'm actually going to be traveling to Indonesia this coming week end to participate in that movement response planning workshop with Kendall. And the objective of my travel is to really learn and participate, help inform the overall response plan for Indonesia, working alongside the Federation and PMI. And one of the outputs from this workshop will be a country response plan, an ISD, or an American Red Cross country response plan for Indonesia. So I would really love to be in touch with you and other folks behind the scenes. And if there's any information you're available to share, I would welcome that if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you both. We have a question in the chat box. I'll ask that one and then go back to the audience. A question from Sandra. Which areas of expertise do the coalition members don't feel comfortable with? Maybe I can ask this to Jaya. Jaya, would you like to touch upon this? And Colin also. Okay, you are online,
Which area of
Jaya.
expertise? Hello, yeah. Which area
of expertise the coalition members don't feel comfortable? Which areas they don't feel comfortable in?
Yeah, I think in terms of the coalition, so far what I learned in this project is yeah, as mentioned that the challenge is to fix the agenda, the schedule. Actually, they are willing. They are always participate in the activity, supporting the campaigning based on their expertise. But then to fix the time the schedule is a very high challenge. And then also in terms of the bureaucracy, particularly in with the government, and we have to always close coordination with them. Um, I think what I learned in this project.
Maybe I remember we talked about this a bit before. I think you mentioned at some point that sometimes some of the coalition members hesitate to take leadership in areas where PMI may not be may not have expertise, but coalition members might have, but they hesitate to take leadership. Can you give an example to one of these?
Yeah, I think I think for example, when they conduct a campaigning activity, for example, in resilience issues, actually the institution who has authority in this issue actually is the DRR, Disaster Risk Reduction Agency, um, as the governmentary. So actually, when they do campaign, for example, that Indonesian Red Cross just lead the activity rather than to just beg to the DRR agency to lead the activity. I think in terms of the activities, how the awareness of the coalition member to share the leadership to let other organization who has more authority on one aspect, for example, rather than for example, is Indonesian Red Cross always lead the activity.
All right, thank you very much. Colin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll give you an example from Vanuatu, where during the city level assessments, there were a number of other stakeholders which were part of the coalition, and the coalition was just in a very formative stage. And we wanted to get them involved into the facilitation of the assessment process. Now, of course, some of the coalition members, like the NDMO, for example, have that experience of DRR, the conceptual knowledge, and also the Met Department geohazards. So they were confident, not comfortable, confident of coming forward and leading that exercise where the National Society was co-facilitating. So as Jaya mentioned, I reinforce that it's not about comfort. I think it's about also a bit of confidence that some of them are getting into something which has been totally new, when most of us and also coalition partners have been used to working in silos or bilaterally. And this project has opened up an entirely new vista and avenues where people are coming together and exchanging information. So it's an organizational issue as well as it's a personality issue. So we see a praxis of these two aspects coming in, and also the National Society is new to them. So how we are also coaching them and creating that confidence of working together. So it's more about confidence levels out here. So I hope that answers Sandra's question.
I hope so too. I'm not sure if Sandra is still online. Okay. Any other questions? You can either unmute yourself or raise hand, and I can unmute you. All right. I actually have a question. I think really convincing organizations to commit time and energy and their resources to be part of this kind of a process is exciting. It's new. It's it's also difficult. I can understand that. So in my mind, they have to be convinced that there is a value to them as well, since that's one of the differences from a partnership around the project or consortium around the project in my mind. So to both Jaya and Colin, what do you think is the biggest value that this process offered to external consortium members?
Yeah, I think based on learning in both city in Indonesia, that the first is yeah, the coalition have to have share purpose together, and then also have a common vision, such as they have goal on relation of resilience issues, how to overcome these issues actually. But then capacity building in terms of the coalition member is also very important in terms of how to raise of their confidence level, as Colin mentioned.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, the whole aspect of a systems approach has really been the added value to the coalition members, because they're just so used to seeing things in silos or in isolation. We are yet to be conscious and strongly aware that how interconnected we are. Okay, that one organization or one system has a knock-on effect on the other. So we really need to strengthen these interrelated systems. And I think that has really been a wow and a hallelujah kind of a moment for different stakeholders to see that interconnectedness. And that is making them also be together and trying to see how and where we can strengthen those systems so that everybody benefits from it. So it's really an ecosystem of issues, an ecosystem of solutions, an ecosystem of partners, where everybody is interconnected. So that's, I think, from my perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, there's a question right now with Hung. Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So actually, I'm from Vietnam, and actually we adapt a little bit of your tool to implement in our projects here. And I agree with you that the biggest challenge is like pulling the coalition member together. So even from the first meeting with them, it's very difficult to get them on board and get them coming to the meeting. So I just wonder if you have any pre-activities before like forming the coalitions, or just like the first meeting of the coalitions. That's the first question. The second question is who offered the lead of that coalition? Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat the second question? I'm not sure if everybody understood.
The second is who is often the lead of the coalition?
All right, thanks. Colin, would you like to?
Sure. Thank you for those questions, Hong. I mean, really good questions. And I'll speak from our experiences. Okay, I think somebody be muted because of the background noise? Okay, right.
Yeah, please mute yourself. All right, I think we are okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for doing that. For the, if you did any activities, etc., I think it difference is different from different cities. I'll talk about my experience from Vanuatu, and the coalition building is not an immediate result. It comes out of, it's a natural process, which Jaya explained. So, is bringing them together, trying to build that cohesion between the groups, trying to give out messages in terms of what values they can bring in, introduce them to the project. I mean, be transparent about the various processes. So there's a lot of focus on the messaging and how the project and how the issue of urban resilience can link with them, and what are the relationship between different members to the issue of urban resilience, and how their expertise can be an an advantage and also a value to this overall process. So the project is basically a vehicle to take the agenda of urban resilience forward. And when the coalition, when the stakeholders understand that value they can play, they keep coming together. Of course, people drop off, people change, and I think it's important that we really stick together, because bringing them together is sometimes easy, but keeping them together is the most challenging part. And there has to be value and purpose to keep them together. And you can, and that is addressed by getting them involved throughout the various project activities and giving them a bigger picture of urban resilience. So that's the first part of your question. The second one is who's leading it. I think perhaps Jaya would actually say it's definitely is the city government where the mayor is, and also supported by the local Red Cross chapter or the branch. She could answer that. But in Vanuatu, it's really the national society which is facilitating and keeping them together, also working closely with the provincial disaster and climate change committee, which is a national institution on disaster management. So it's part of that whole mechanism. So I hope I have answered your question to some degree.
Okay, I take it as a yes and move on. So we have a question from Ian. So the question is, as you initiate the activities in Myanmar, what adjustments have you made in the project approach based on your experience so far in Indonesia and Vanuatu? How did you carry that experience, and what kind of adjustments you made?
Okay, thanks Ian for that question, especially somebody who's actually led in terms of the designing of this overall project. So I really appreciate that, and also having you on this webinar. Fine. I think in Myanmar, the adjustments we are looking at right now is really building the capacities of the national society in terms of how we are engaging, communicating with business entities or the private sector. And since I'm actually been out here for the last 2 days in the city of Molongnyang, I've been able to engage with ADPC, because ADPC is has a very strong component of business preparedness, and also working with different associations in the country. And they've been really happy to be part of it, to see how we can strengthen that capacity, build strategies in terms of getting the private sector involved and what would drive them and keep them involved. I think that is really because that is a area to strengthen from both of our other cities. So I think that is one part. The second part of the aspect is in terms of this whole co-designing of solutions, which we are planning to roll a pilot in Myanmar to see this whole aspect of human-centered design and how we design solutions and implement the solutions, bringing everybody. I think that is something which we learned from and has not come out so strongly in Vanuatu and in Indonesia. So that's two. And the third is it that is when in terms of stakeholders and institutional mechanism, it's not only the city level, but also we need to connect with the higher levels, because the state level in Myanmar has more influence and power over the township level. So if they give directives to their local stakeholder, those representatives will be coming in. So we're bringing the state as well as the city level into it. I think top of my head, those are the three things we would be working on in terms of strengthening the approach in Myanmar. I think as we go along, a lot of things will be evolving and we would till adapting to the context of Myanmar.
Thank you both. Any other questions? You can either raise your hand or write in the chat box. All right. If not, and we are right on time. And thank you again. Oh, sorry. Just one more new message. Let me just check that. Okay. That's a thank you from Ian to Colin and Jaya. All right, then I think we are going to close this webinar. Thank you again very much, Colin and Jaya, for this excellent presentation and for you joining us today. Have a good day.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you, everybody, for joining in and listening into our work and quick questions. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Can you also, sorry, can you also share the presentation?
We will upload it. I can send it, but we will also upload it and share the link on the Prepare
thank you.
Center. Thanks.
Thank you.